24 hours or so, we could pick up as much as a foot of rain in parts of these areas. Set this into motion quickly, and you can see where you see the purple, where you see the pink shading. That's 10 inches of rain in only about 24 to 48 hours, leading to a risk of flooding, which will take us into the weekend. Gail, I'll send it over to you.
All right, Kate, I've got it. I still always love looking at the weather graphics. Thank you so much. Ahead, Adriana talks with a woman who learned painful, and the word painful really applies here. Family secrets. This was a trial that made headlines around the world. You'll remember the story when we tell it to you after the break. How she's now fighting to protect other people from being victimized. But first, it is 8:04. Time to check your local weather.
Through parts of northwest Arkansas, we do have a severe thunderstorm warning for western Benton, western Washington County. This runs until 8:45 this morning. 60-mile-per-hour damaging straight line winds likely coming out of the Boeing segment there. These lines of severe storms extending further into southeast Oklahoma. All of this is tracking towards the east-northeast. We do have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect for portions of LaFleur and Sequoia counties as well. Our severe weather coverage continues over on 5+. Yeah, we're going to start the stream now, and I guess you'll just let us know when we're going to do cut-ins, and then we'll just make that weird transition over. Cool. But we're going to keep the stream up, so I guess don't take us to black. Cool. All right. Hey, good morning, everybody on 5+ and on your mobile apps. You probably just heard me talking with our director back up there. We're getting a little plan on how we're going to track these storms moving into the area this morning. Kind of dancing a little bit of a dance here, a little do-si-do, if you will, between our streaming coverage as these storms continue to roll into the area this morning, as well as how we're going to tackle these storms over on the traditional Channel 5 airwaves as well. As you can see, there is a line of thunderstorms moving into east Oklahoma and northwest Arkansas. All of this is going to be moving into west Arkansas over the next couple of hours as well. There are severe thunderstorm warnings up and down this line. The warnings have been issued for the potential of 60-mile-per-hour winds, probably a little bit of hail coming out of these storms as well. Gentry, Bella Vista, parts of Decatur included in the warning that runs until 8:45 this morning for northwestern Benton County. This line of storms is going to be moving into the Fayetteville area here real soon, despite the fact that Fayetteville technically not under that warning. You'll see this line, while it's broken, it does extend back towards McAllister, and those orange polygons there, those orange boxes, each of those represent a severe thunderstorm warning. So the key takeaway for us right now is the whole line of storms is producing some severe weather. Now, one of the things that I'm a little concerned with this morning, just in full spirit of transparency, this isn't a cohesive line. These cells are becoming what we call semi-discrete. They're not totally out there on their own, but they're discrete enough that they very well could produce some hail pretty quickly, and there's going to be an attendant tornado potential as well. Before we take a closer look into these warnings, I do want to show you our watches that are currently in effect, primarily the tornado watch, which is set to run until noon. It's every county here in yellow, so all of East Oklahoma, a large majority of West Arkansas under this tornado watch. A watch simply means that conditions, they're favorable, right? You probably know this, and if you don't, that's okay too. A watch just means conditions are favorable to support a tornado at any moment. Back to live radar we go. Let's go right into northwest Arkansas. Here's my plan with this storm. We're going to work our way from the north to the south. The warning in effect for Bella Vista, Bentonville, as well as Muskogee, Tahlequah. It's a pretty large warning box. 60-mile-per-hour winds are going to be possible with this storm. Heavy rain, some high winds moving through Siloam Springs right now. Soon those winds are going to be moving into the Bentonville and Rogers area. Decatur, you got a lot of lightning, you got some thunder, some heavy rain, and those 60-mile-per-hour straight line winds are more likely to be found right here on the leading edge of this system, and those are going to be pushing out of the leading edge of that segment. Let's take a look at rotation. Let's just make sure we don't have anything out there that shouldn't be. This line of storms does have a history of producing some rotation. I just want to be very clear with you. I do see a little bit. This is going to be right here just to the southeast of Jay. It's really broad, and we're looking relatively high up in the atmosphere. So while, yeah, there's a little rotation signal right there, it's not enough. It's not strong enough at the moment to prompt a tornado warning or any concern. You just saw a brand new scan come in real time, and I'll tell you with that update, it doesn't look as impressive as it did even a couple of seconds ago. Somewhat of a volatile environment that is going to be capable of producing some tornadoes. So we got to track this closely. We got the full weather team here looking at every individual cell, make sure we don't let anything slip past us rotation wise. Right now we're in okay shape. We'll go back to live Doppler radar. We're going to work our way down this line. In Adair, parts of western Washington County, we do have storms getting ready to move into the area. Westville here, Stillwell here, a lot of lightning. Boy, a lot of thunder. These storms are relatively electric out there this morning. West Fork and Fayetteville, Greenland, let's say Farmington, Prairie Grove, not technically in the warning box yet. But assuming this system continues tracking the way it does, it's certainly going to be included in some warnings over the next few minutes. Let's get into portions of the river valley. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. We can get some more towns popping up on the map. Sallisaw, good morning to everybody there in Sequoia County. From Sallisaw through Webbers Falls, if you live anywhere between those two towns, especially along I-40, you got some scattered thunderstorms moving your direction. There is going to be the potential of some damaging winds, some hail here as well. Stigler's also included in our warning for us this morning. What time does that one expire? That is going to be also at 8:45 this morning. All of this is tracking pretty quickly. These storms are moving east-northeast at about 60 miles per hour. Let's make sure that's still current. That's what they were moving. Okay, they're down to 55, so we've lost a little bit of forward momentum, but not a lot. Not a lot at all. It's a pretty broken line. I'm going to put it in motion here over the last hour or so. What you're going to find, generally speaking, these guys moving up towards the east-northeast. You notice at the beginning of that loop, it was more linear back off towards the Tulsa area. A couple of these cells did produce confirmed tornado damage in the Tulsa metro area about an hour or so ago. So we know that they're going to be capable of producing some severe weather. I think our most likely potential today is actually going to be damaging wind and hail. That tornado threat, obviously it's high enough that we'll have to be mindful of some rotation, but I really think by at the end of the day, we're going to have more hail and wind reports than tornado reports. We'll track it all closely, just the same. Worst of it is now moving into Benton and Washington County. Given the fact that this line or broken line is a bit more oriented from the northeast back towards the southwest, storms now moving through McAllister, it's going to be a little bit longer before we see that activity pick up in the river valley. So with that in mind, I'm going to go back into the leading edge of this system that is warned for Delaware, Adair, Benton, and Washington counties. And what you're going to see here, there's a lot of lightning. These storms are pretty healthy. These storms are going to be likely producing some gusty winds. It's already been very windy out there this morning. We've had thunderstorm winds that actually produced a little bit of tree damage. Our engineer here had some non-thunderstorm tree damage early this morning before the line of storms even moved in. Now we're going to add some more additional wind right on top of that. We very well could be seeing that happening in Bentonville, Rogers right now. We are getting close to the polygon there and through central Benton and almost central Washington County. It's almost running not parallel, but is running close to parallel with Interstate 49. We'll have to see what the Weather Service decides to do. Are these storms maintaining their strength to the degree in which we would have to extend this warning a little bit further out? I think probably so, just given the environment that these storms are in. We'll have to see what they're actually doing at the ground level, and I suspect we'll have some information regarding that here real soon. I'm going to take a look at velocity. Let's see if we have any additional rotation. Kind of bouncing between a few radars. Nothing that's concerning at this moment. That's some good news. Take a look at just some winds. Gosh, there's some breezy winds out there. There's no question about that. We'll take a sample of some of these. Radar estimating about 69 mile per hour wind gusts potentially coming out of these storms. We're talking some straight line winds. There's going to be very common up and down this line here from 49 through Bella Vista down towards Springdale initially, but even we get into parts of western Washington County, I think those winds are going to be a problem for us. Now this is at radar level. Not all of that may be translating to the surface level, but if you got near 60, 70 mile per hour winds at the radar level, some of that is mixing to the surface. So 50 to 60 is certainly a safe bet, I would believe, and that's why we've got this warning issued. It does have the potential for a little bit of hail, although I'll tell you, I've not seen any hail with this specific system. At least not over the last hour or so. Let's watch it. We've got the team here. If you guys see anything over there that's worth passing along, just let me know. In fact, what I'd like to do is take a look at a couple of our cameras. First, we're going to start in Bentonville with our Jack Lynx camera. What do things look like there? So we've got this guy pointed off towards the east. So we don't see anything yet. It's not going to be much longer if you're in Bentonville. I'm going to see if I can't swing this dude around. If we can swing this camera around, point it back off towards the west, we're going to be looking into the heart of this storm. And you can see the skies are getting a little bit darker there. You can start to see the rain curtain back off towards the southwest there. So if you're in Bentonville, you got a handful of minutes, not very much longer at all, before you got some heavy rain and some gusty winds moving into the area. We'll keep panning around. Sky's definitely getting darker further off towards the west. You can start to see that lightning increase there. You're going to see a lot of lightning, and you're going to hear a decent amount of thunder with these storms based off what we're seeing on radar. We'll keep an eye on that camera. Now let's go to our camera in Rogers. This is going to be at Mercy Hospital, right there on the east side of 49 near Pinnacle Hills. We're going to be likely looking directly into this storm. Can't see a whole lot yet. Maybe we've had a couple of sprinkles there on that camera lens. Of course, here's Cross Church. We're looking towards the northeast, so that you can't see a whole lot of detail. We're probably still a little bit further away from the storm, but you notice that lightning on the increase there as well. We'll keep an eye on this, make sure we don't see anything of interest. It's going to be tough to pick out the wind, right? But in case there's any other storm features, it'll be able to give us a pretty good understanding of what we're expecting. Let's put some tracks on this. These things moving now at 55 miles per hour. Hey, Josh or Stephen, let's watch that Eufaula cell. The one that's going to move just to the north of Eufaula. I want to keep a close eye on that one. Before I put some storm tracks, I'm going to take a closer look into this. This is going to be severe thunderstorm warned. Some cities included in this, going to be Chakotay, McAllister, Salisaw, and Stigler. There's some rotation right here in Eufaula. Here's your rotation. It's not strong enough right now that there's a tornado warning. I don't necessarily love this signal though here over Eufaula. This is going to be tracking towards the northeast, so probably passes Chakotay just off towards the east a little bit. May come close to Sims. Eventually Gore is going to be next in line. Salisaw, a little too close for comfort. We're going to want to watch that one really closely over there. Guys, while I put some storm tracks on this, I'm going to trust you'll keep a close eye on that. Get in my ear if you see anything else. Before I do that, there is a little bit of a notch here, right? So you got rotation, you got a little bit of a notch. Doesn't necessarily mean tornado is imminent, but it certainly means that we want to pay really close attention to that fella right there. Even this cell now moving into Adair County has a little bit of a look to it. Does it have any rotation? No, it doesn't, based off of Tulsa or Fort Smith radar. That's some good news for us. We'll keep an eye on that one as well. Looks like we've extended the warning up into McDonald County in Oklahoma. Yet to be determined if we're going to see an extension for Benton and Washington County. Let's put a track on this. We'll get some ideas of how quickly the leading edge of this system is going to be moving into your area. Eureka Springs is going to be up next. Fayetteville, you're going to have some rain and likely some gusty winds here as well. Mercy Northwest, that's exactly where our Rogers camera is. We were just looking from. That's going to be at 8:18, so pretty much in just about a minute you're going to see those winds pick up. Downtown Rogers, 8:20. How about the U of A campus? Got some students who are back from spring break, 8:25. Downtown Fayetteville on the square, I expect those winds to really pick up right around 8:27 this morning. To all of our friends there in Goshen, great friends with the Homemaker group there in Goshen. Good morning to you folks. 8:34 this morning. We'll jump down to Eureka Springs, 8:44. This puts the leading edge of that storm in Huntsville at about 8:53. Now these are Doppler radar estimated times of arrival simply based off of current speed, right? So some things can change, but unless nothing does change, I think that's a pretty safe bet on when you could expect some of these storms. Now things get a little bit more isolated down here as parts of southeast Oklahoma, so it's going to be a little little bit tougher to put actual storm tracks on all of this cluster of things right now. It's not just one uniform line, but I want to watch closely not only the cell moving through Eufaula, which there's a notable uptick in lightning. It's maintaining that notch. Really want to keep a close eye on that one, but even these isolated discrete cells here that's going to soon move into parts of LaFleur and eventually into Sequoia County. Those are ones we really want to watch closely, even back towards the southwest of McAllister, a notable uptick in lightning there. It tells us these storms are healthy, and that's not necessarily surprising to us at all, right? We know the environment is relatively primed for some severe storms. There's a lot of storm fuel, decent amount of shear in the upper levels of the atmosphere, not so much directional shear. The winds here at the surface are almost out of the southwest, which is kind of running parallel with the overall storms, and that's helping to mitigate a little bit of our rotation. You got to think of it like spinning a top, right? You know, when you spin a top and you twist your fingers in opposite directions, you kind of need those winds to transition from the southwest backing towards the west with height, and we're not seeing that necessarily just yet. That's not a saving grace. That does not mean we're going to avoid severe weather or rotation completely, but it does mean maybe instead of long track tornadoes, maybe we're looking at some shorter track rotation, if anything at all. Can't guarantee anything's going to happen out there, but it's certainly a factor that's been in our favor here this morning. I do have a report to pass along to you. Quarter-size hail with the storm in the Chakotah area. That report certainly makes sense just given the strength of that storm. That's the one we're watching that's still off to our west. Getting close to pretty much I-40. The area of concern would be right there to the east of Chakotah along I-40. That is inevitably going to move into far northwest Sequoia County, likely towards the Gore community, and inevitably on its current track would take it back into Adair County towards Greasy over the next little bit. That storm specifically is moving at, is it also 55? It is moving at 55 as well. So let's put a track on that. First, before we do that, let's go in really tight. Let's check that rotation. It's been a minute or two. Duchess Landing is probably where we would expect that if it's still there. It's broad. It's not tight. You would need that rotation to tighten up. You would need these colors to tighten up here, but it's still rotating. I think that's pretty evident. Your rotation is going to be crossing Interstate 40 near Warner, there at the interchange of 64 and 40. Not far from Warner. It's broad though. Let's make sure it doesn't tighten up. It certainly can. With that in mind, let's track that towards the east-northeast, 55 miles an hour. Duchess Landing at 8:26. So you're here probably in the next couple of minutes. Connor State College 8:34, Gore 8:47, Vian 8:54, Salisaw at 9:05. Assuming it doesn't pulse up or pulse down. It's one to watch though. It's the strongest rotation I've seen over the last hour. The strongest rotation I've seen this morning, with the exception of the one that did produce a tornado over near the Tulsa area. Tulsa Metro had a confirmed tornado this morning, not far from the airport there. It was a brief tornado, which is I think what we'd expect given the environment we've got here. This is really more of a damaging wind and likely a hail potential for a lot of us. Now these storms in northwest Arkansas, it's getting loud, it's getting kind of bright out there with all that lightning. I would expect that to continue to be the case over the next, let's say, hour or so before we continue to push these storms off towards the east. I want to take a look at our camera network here. So we've got the rain has started in Bentonville from our Jack Links camera. Heaviest part of the thunderstorm now moving into that part of the area. Fayetteville downtown's dry. Keep in mind that's not necessarily going to be the case for a whole lot longer. Ozark looking off towards the east. Things are pretty quiet in Ozark, Fort Smith, in that part of the area. And that's probably going to be the case for the next little bit. Our brand new camera here in Poto doesn't show a whole lot going on right now, but this is going to be a pretty good vantage point for us as those storms get a little bit closer to that part of the area. If you guys want to spin that Poto camera around, maybe get me a little bit better angle, it wouldn't be a terrible idea as those storms are on approach. Now, if you're watching the stream here, here's kind of the dance we're dancing this morning. We got a couple of bases to cover. Not only we want to keep you up to date with those storms right here on 5+, and that's where we're going to be most of the morning. But we're also doing some live cut-ins through CBS Mornings. You know, we do those every morning. So here in about 2 minutes or so, you're going to have to see me kind of switch gears. It may feel a little clunky. I've not forgotten about you folks on here on 5+. Really important to us. We're just going to cover both, and we'll be just right back as soon as possible. You're not going to miss me necessarily, but you're going to see me talking to the CBS Morning audience for a little bit. We do want to keep an eye on a couple of these cells. In fact, I go back into the one in Adair County. It just has a shape to it, and a shape doesn't really necessarily translate to actual impending severe threat. But you look near Christie, there's no rotation right there, but you kind of have that kidney bean shape, or the shape that you would maybe expect to see a growing supercell. A little bit of a notch right here just to the north of Stillwell. It is severe thunderstorm warned. There probably are 60-mile-per-hour straight line winds coming out of it, but that's it for now. That warning set to expire at 8:45 this morning, so we got a little bit to go for that specific warning. We do have these warnings continuing for northwest Arkansas. It does include Siloam Springs, Bentonville, Rogers. I think Decatur and Gentry you're fine for right now, but you do have an additional storm back off to your west. That's going to probably cause you some issues here in the next few minutes. Back towards Jay, Locust Grove, Tahlequah. Looks like there's a line of storm shaping up right there. That's probably going to be along our cold front. Everything out ahead of that actual front are the ones that we're going to be most pressed with over the next few minutes. Folks, I lost my microphone, I think. I don't know. Can I hear from anybody up in the booth, please? Do what? I can't hear anybody. Okay, maybe I just lost IFB. Yep, I did. Low battery. That's fine. I'll fix this. All part of the job, right? I suspect I'm going to be going through a few batteries today and this week. 30 till cut in. All right, back in action. Got one of those cut-ins here coming up here real soon, folks. On the stream, we'll be right back with you in just a couple of minutes, just in the nick of time. Got those batteries replaced.
Covering news where you live. This is 5 News This Morning.
Hey, good morning, everybody. 5 News Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert working alongside the entire 5 News weather team here, tracking these storms for you this morning. They are severe, moving through northwest Arkansas right now. Thunderstorms capable of producing 60-mile-per-hour winds. A little bit of hail probably mixing in with these storms as well. I'll take a closer look before we do that. Notice this. We've got some semi-discrete cells moving through parts of east Oklahoma as well, and all of this activity is going to be tracking towards the east-northeast. They're coming in a little bit later than previously thought, but they are still packing a punch, and that is going to be a problem for us over the next couple of hours with a tornado watch in effect until noon today. We'll begin our coverage here in northwest Arkansas. A strong thunderstorm capable of producing 60-mile-per-hour winds, probably just shy of 1 inch in diameter hail moving through parts of Bentonville, Rogers. Heavy rain, a lot of lightning and thunder moving through Benton County, and that extends well into Siloam Springs as well. Look off towards the west. You're going to get a bit of a break. Sure, a little lull in the activity. More of those thunderstorms likely moving into your neck of the woods. We'll take a look here into Adair County. This cell is severe. It does have a little bit of a look to it. There's a little bit of a kidney bean shape. You notice that notch right there? Well, that notch in of itself isn't necessarily severe, but when these supercells are that discrete and they start to take that kind of a shape, it's certainly something we want to be really mindful of. That's where we could see some inevitable rotation. Not seeing any with that right now, but that's certainly something we want to pay close attention to over the next few minutes. We're really quiet in the River Valley right now, but just off to the west, knocking at our back door, there's a couple of different severe thunderstorm warning polygons. Now, these cells are rather discrete, but they are relatively strong. This one specifically moving north Chakotah, crossing Interstate 40 just to the west of our folks here in Sequoyah County. This one has had a little bit of rotation. You're noticing that hook echo there. It's not tornado warned right now. There's no pressing imminent tornado potential at this exact moment. The environment, however, is conducive for some severe thunderstorms that could inevitably produce some rotation. And so that's why we want to be on top of all of these storms all morning long. The ones that are severe in northwest Arkansas, that warning runs until 8:45. So we have a little bit more to go. I suspect there's going to be some additional warnings over the next few minutes. When I put this into motion, this is a 1-hour radar loop, so you can have a general idea of the track of these storms likely to be moving into the Arkansas River Valley, East Oklahoma, northwest Arkansas, likely between now and let's say late morning, early afternoon. I think that's when we're going to get a bit of a break. We'll have to watch for some additional development, especially across the River Valley later this afternoon. afternoon. We do have a tornado watch in effect for a large majority of the area. Not everybody, but if you're in yellow here, this tornado watch runs until noon today. You've, of course, got the flood watch in effect for Johnson, Logan, and Scott County. That really kicks into high gear later this week. The flooding concern is really going to maximize towards the end of the week into the weekend. Oh, we're off live? I got no countdown on that. Okay, I can hear you, but I heard nothing. I heard no cues. I thought this was a really long cut in. I can now. Yep. Okay, we'll continue our coverage here on the 5+ stream. It's tough. It's really tough. We got a great crew here doing the best. You got to do regular TV. You got to do streaming, the mobile apps. We're going to cover it all. No matter what it takes, we'll get there. We'll keep you covered with these storms. Hopefully that was good information anyways. It's applicable to anyone and everyone that's watching on the stream. So no concerns out there. Warning set to expire at 8:45. I think they're going to have to either issue a further downstream extension or maybe it's just falling below severe limits. I think the winds, though, are still rather impressive there. Let's see what the update here is in this southern warning. It's flashing, pulsing for a reason. Looks like it's set to run there at 8:45. They've upped the hail potential, is looking like the reason that warning is flashing. Now up to 1 inch in diameter hail in addition to the 60-mile-per-hour wind potential with some of those isolated discrete cells out there. I'm going to go back to the one near Chakotah. That's the one that had that rotation earlier. Let's see. It's there. It's just kind of weak. I'm going to circle it. You can get an idea of where it is. You can probably pick it out pretty easily. A lot of folks on here are really good at reading radar around these parts. That's where it would be if there is any rotation at all. I'll tell you, it's not near as pronounced as it was earlier. Even then, it wasn't a very strong, right? There's never any warning behind it, but that's where it would be right now. So we're pretty much crossing I-40. It would move in towards the Gore and Sims communities, respectively, over the next, let's say, 15 to 20 minutes, should it actually hold together. I want to go back up into Adair County. That's one cell that had a little bit of a look to it as well. That hooking shape, even more pronounced than it was. The hook itself getting ready to move into western Washington County. What's the rotation look like? There's none, which is some good news for us. Let's make sure that doesn't change, though. Guys over there, let's lock in on that one as well. If you aren't already, I'm sure you are. That one is going to be moving into a good majority of Washington County. Let's put a track on it. This is just an early heads up. This isn't I want to scare anybody. I just think this is one storm that we're just going to want to really watch, especially as it is somewhat discrete in nature. At 55 miles per hour, that would put this specific storm, Summers 833, up to 65. It's moving a little bit quicker. Let me take that off. Thank you, Stephen. Put that storm, this general area. Summers around 831, Farmington 845, downtown Fayetteville 849, Campus as well as 849, Johnson 851, Springdale a couple of minutes after that, right around 853, Bethel Heights at 855, just to name a few of those towns that could be in the path of that storm. It is severe thunderstorm warning. It does have a little bit of a structure to it. That structure doesn't mean that there's necessarily a pressing imminent tornado potential. That's not necessarily the case, but it's certainly something we want to watch. Here's where that hook is, right? It kind of has that classic supercellular look. The more discreet these guys become, the more concerning it does become for us. There is some clutter, I call it clutter, non-severe showers out ahead of it. That could be helping us out a little bit. Maybe we're not getting as much inflow into that specific cell. Let's watch it, right? Let's watch it. Just checking to make sure nothing's updated here. We're still at 60-mile-per-hour winds coming out of that cell. Almost 1 inch hail. I want to take another look at those cameras. Let's see what those winds are doing out there. It's going to load up here. We'll be looking at Northwest Arkansas on the top panel here. Bentonville, gosh, blinding rain. I bet we got some traffic issues. I don't know, Stephen, you want to pull up some traffic cameras over there? We'll see what we got. I think there's probably, I wouldn't be surprised if there's not a few accidents with heavy rain like that. Fayetteville, you're looking off towards the north here from downtown. So we're looking into the heart of that storm. It's going to be approaching us from the west, which is going to be off camera here. And you're going to notice those storms moving right into downtown Fayetteville, probably in the next 20 or so minutes. Looking off towards the east there in Ozark, things are quiet. Fort Smith, things are quiet. We'll keep an eye off towards the west. That's where those storms are going to be approaching from, right, as these move off towards the east, northeast. Actually, Stephen, I took that away from you. Sorry. If you guys have any questions, feel free to text me. Here's our plan here. I don't want you to mistake our presence on this stream as there's imminent tornado potential. Our presence here is because we've got severe thunderstorm warnings with a tornado watch, meaning these thunderstorms could inevitably produce. Wow, we just caught some impressive cloud to ground lightning. That was actually very scary to see that. These storms are going to have a lot of lightning with them. So our presence here, I'm a squirrel. I saw some lightning. It was nuts, right? Our presence here just to keep folks up to date. We've been talking about this severe weather potential for the last several days. I know there's some storm anxiety out there for good reason. We've weathered a lot of storms in recent weeks, years. And so if you're one of those folks, we just want to be a place for you this morning to come get some no hype information. That's our only goal. In fact, my goal is to make this stream the most boring stream you could possibly imagine. We'll track these storms with the attention they warrant. We don't want to add any hype to this. That's the last thing I want to do. But if I can walk you through the storm this morning, giving you the information that we get as we get it, as it relates to keeping you and your friends and family safe, that's my objective here this morning. We do have some severe storms moving into the area, some storms that are going to be capable of producing some severe thunderstorms. Cody, up in the booth, how long is this cut in? This is a 30-second cut in. So we're going to do this little dance here again, this little do-si-do, where we talk to the folks over on CBS Mornings. We'll be right back here on the stream as well. When we come back to the stream, we'll probably want to, Stephen, you got an accident there?
We've got 2 accidents to talk about, both in Washington County. We can show those. Not really backing up any traffic. I think they're off to the side.
Okay, stand by. We'll stay here on radar. Pretty impressive severe thunderstorm warnings. They're large, very, very large warnings, encompassing a large majority of northwest Arkansas, northeast Oklahoma, and these extending back into southeast Oklahoma. It's a pretty large warning polygon as well. These storms are slowing down, I think. Not only do we see that data reflected in the warnings, but just over the last couple of minutes, we're just not getting as much forward progress as we were earlier this morning. The front is going to be slowing down. That's why our severe weather threat is probably going to linger into the early part of this afternoon for a lot of us. And then that front, because it is slowing down, it's going to stall out just to our south, and that's going to be a key focal point to the rest of this week's severe weather. Standing by. Let's get a check of your forecast out there. Live radar shows those thunderstorms moving into the area. They are severe, capable of producing 60-mile-per-hour winds. Brand new, just as we see popping up on the map, brand new severe thunderstorm warning for eastern Benton, eastern Washington, now extending into Carroll and Madison counties. We're going to be tracking these storms into the River Valley as well. We do have a tornado watch that's going to be in effect until noon today. Our severe weather coverage continues on 5+. Okay, excellent. Cody, just for reference, I didn't get a countdown going into that. That could be helpful in the future ones. All good. Got it. I understand. Cool, thank you. Stephen, you had some traffic to pass along? We can pull up Stephen's mic over there if we could.
Take a look at road conditions right now. This is at Battlefield, and they're in Bentonville, or Benton County. You mentioned just the blinding rainfall. You can see strikes of lightning every once in a while as well. That's definitely the strongest. Oh, wow. Loud pop of thunder here at the station. 2 accidents, though. Neither one of them causing major traffic backup. One in Johnson. Here's a look at Johnson Mill Boulevard. You can see there traffic moving slower than usual, but at least it's moving, getting along. Don't want anybody caught in those thunderstorms. Another accident. This is going to be near Fayetteville. This is disabled stalled vehicle. This is off to the side of the road, impacting that left lane, heading southbound. Outside of that, those are only 2 accident reports right now. No major traffic backup. Of course, that's what we want to avoid once those thunderstorms crossover I-49, especially I-40.
Yep, got a question about what's the storm timeline for Crawford County and let's just say parts of the Fort Smith, greater Fort Smith area. Let's take a look at that. With these storms slowing down, our timeline shifting seemingly. So let's put a track on some of these. These were moving at about 50 to 55 miles per hour. I'm just going to pick one out for us. It's kind of an isolated cell, but this gives you a general timeline. 8:52 Sallisaw, Gans 8:56, Muldrow, how about a little after 9 o'clock this morning? Roland 9:07, Fort Smith 9:14, Cedarville 9:20, Alma at 9:25, Mountainburg at 8:32, puts it in the Mulberry community at about 9:36, heads up in Winslow, should that storm move your direction, around 9:40 this morning. That gives you a rough estimate of when you can expect those storms to move in. They are slowing down a little bit, and that's going to be a concern for us, not only just because of the severe weather threat potentially prolonged, but some flash flooding concerns may start to materialize today. Northwest Arkansas, I want to go back into this specific cell. The new warning now set to expire at 9:15. It has had some pretty impressive wind speeds with it. Let's take a sample of some of those. I'm just going to pick out some random spots. 44 miles per hour, 55 outside of Rogers. You get closer to Springdale, about 60 mile per hour winds. South side of Springdale up to about 50. You get into Fayetteville, perhaps 60 mile per hour winds. This is straight line winds coming out of these cells. That's enough to do a little bit of damage to some smaller trees, right? Today's my trash day, and I don't know what weather god I frustrated. My trash day for the last 3 weeks has been on those really, really windy days. I've lost my recycling bin. I don't know where my trash can is going to be today with winds like that. If your trash day is today, there's no telling where your trash can is going to end up out there by the time you get home. Damaging winds, got to take it seriously though. This is at radar level, so there is some probably decrease as those winds are making it to the ground. But even with that in mind, we're still talking about some really gusty winds coming out of this thunderstorm. In addition to the winds, there could be a little bit of hail. I'll tell you though, I've not seen a whole lot in Northwest Arkansas. Our hail detector not detecting anything of severe nature when it comes to hail. Very well could be some pockets of some small hail mixing in. You've kind of seen that over time as those storms did track from the southwest to the northeast into parts of Benton County. Haven't really seen a lot of that necessarily in Washington County. That may change if these storms pulse up, but right now it's pretty much being dominated by that hail potential. I want to go back into, let's see here.
And just real quick, some of those more discrete cells in the river valley, it looks like those hail cores may be reaching close to quarter size in some spots headed towards LaFleur and Sequoia counties.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you for that, Joshua. Let's take a look at this cell here. This is where I was coming to. This is one that had a little bit of rotation earlier. It's getting closer to the Gore community. Based off of Fort Smith radar, not seeing a whole lot of rotation with that specific cell. It's not looking near as impressive as it was. You look from the Tulsa radar, not seeing the rotation that was there. It was never strong per se, but it was concerning for a hot minute. Not seeing that necessarily now. We'll take a look at the hail core in some of these as these supercells continue to pop up. Moving into parts. They're getting closer to Sequoia and LaFleur County. You can see the track over time. These little pockets of some hail. Generally speaking, it's probably around a quarter or so on the maximum side of things, maybe closer to Nichols with some displays such as that. Could it pulse up? Yeah, absolutely could. Absolutely could. Got another question, I think, coming in on our text messages. Will there be more storms later today after these move through? There is going to be the potential for some additional development, primarily in the River Valley. By this afternoon, and then we'll take a look. We'll go back area-wide, and you can see there's some additional thunderstorms or showers trying to develop back off towards the west near Tulsa. I really think this is probably going to be the bulk of the activity from this line off towards the east over the next several hours. We're getting closer to that Fort Smith area. These little discrete cells are the ones that I want to watch really closely. It's not to say these in Northwest aren't severe. They are, and there's a lot of wind with it. There's a lot of lightning and a lot of thunder, some heavy rain. That's problematic. But the discrete nature of these are the ones that are going to lend themselves to that potential for tornadoes a little bit quicker than maybe some others. We had that one that moved through Western Washington, in Western Washington right now, but goodness gracious, this really come down. It's not near as organized as it once was. In fact, I'll bump this back just a couple of scans. You see how it goes from somewhat of a concerning hook right there, getting close to 62, State Highway 62. You fast forward a few minutes and It's just not near as impressive as it once was. This is going to be moving towards Tawnytown now. The worst part of that is, anyways, soon that'll be moving, crossing the county line over into Benton County. Got some showers near Lincoln, some showers, light rain picking up in West Fork. Downtown Fayetteville, you're certainly going to be seeing some of those showers over the next few minutes. Heavy rain as well. I can certainly hear it out there. And there's going to be a lot of lightning and a lot of thunder out there. We've seen a lot of strikes. Let's do a query on how many lightning strikes we've seen. There's been a lot. These storms have been pretty electric this morning. This is going to be over the last 10 minutes alone. We'll do a big box here. About 191 strikes over the last 10 minutes in Northwest Arkansas, but about half of those almost are in Northwest Arkansas, half likely going to be in the River Valley with those storms moving back from McAllister. Stephen, are you at the desk over there?
Yep.
Folks up in the booth, I don't know what rundown you're operating out of, but if we want to bring Stephen in from the weather desk, we could toss things to him for just a few minutes, let him do some examination of some of these cells. Looks like we have a new severe thunderstorm warning. This one includes Cherokee, Pushmataha, McIntosh, Sequoia, Adair, LaFleur, Latimer, Pittsburgh, Haskell, and Muskogee counties. It's a big one. That one is going to be running through 9:30 this morning. The reason that new warning just popped up here, it's those same discrete supercells. They're really just not moving. Goodness. In fact, let's just put it in motion over the last, let's do the last hour just to be on the safe side. You see a lot of movement up until probably the last half hour, and then they're just not moving very fast at all. In fact, new forward speed on that new thunderstorm warning is, let's see, they've hidden it from me, 50 miles per hour. So we've gone from 60 to 55, now down to 50. So these storms continue to slow down. That's going to move our window in which we'd expected these to arrive a little bit later into the morning. One of the concerning aspects of that, and not to say it's definitively going to happen, but the later we get into the morning, closer we get to the afternoon with these cells, there's going to be more daytime heating and more fuel for these storms, and that's may cause us some issues in terms of severity as they push off towards the east, getting a little bit further outside of our viewing area. All right, let's turn it over to Stephen for just a few minutes.
All right, let's take a look at what we got going on right now. Of course, we got severe thunderstorm warnings that stretch from northwest Arkansas to just reaching over into eastern Oklahoma, eventually into the River Valley as well. Kind of seeing that developmental stage right now, like we talked about, how they're definitely severe right now. There are some strong straight line winds accompanying with that. Still waiting to see the hail cores tick up, still waiting to see if every once in a while there's a shape of something like Scott was talking about earlier. Does it eventually turn into something that starts rotating? It's just an environment right now that we're continuing to monitor. I do want to let you know, in case you missed us this morning, as we were tracking that line of thunderstorms out of Oklahoma, there was 2 confirmed tornado warnings. So this line of thunderstorms has shown a history of being able to rotate in a quick supercell here and there. So that's definitely a chance for us today. It's on the lower end of things. Main concern going into this was going to be the strong straight line winds, especially if we can get some of these thunderstorms to really start to line up, but also the chances of some very large hail. The good news is, especially as one of these lines, a very messy line right now, is crossing over I-49, it's not dumping a lot of large hailstones right now. That's good for all the folks who are on the road at 8:45 this morning. Now, that doesn't mean we're done yet, and usually in some situations like this, we can get thunderstorms to line up very nicely, where it's an exact straight line, and then we can clear people who are west of that line. Unfortunately, that's not the case today. We've got a real mess on our hands right now where these thunderstorms are trying to form together, trying to form that direct line.
Can I say, Stephen, I just want to interject one small thing. Brand new tornado watch now issued for Johnson, Logan, and Scott counties. That one will run through 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. Here's a look at that watch. Might not just populate just yet.
It'll take just a second.
But what Scott's mentioning there is earlier this morning, everything you see shaded in yellow there, that is that tornado watch that was extended out of Oklahoma into northwest Arkansas, parts of the River Valley. Johnson, Logan, Scott County, you live there, you probably hear us mention it all the time. Those counties are associated with a different office with the National Weather Service. So we got to wait to see if they follow suit with any watches or warnings that are issued. And they have now followed suit with that tornado watch. That's going to extend out for the morning hours as well. So now all of our counties in our viewing area across northwest Arkansas and the River Valley are underneath that tornado watch for the next several hours. It's not a guarantee, right, that we're going to see any tornadoes for today, right? It's the environment is suitable to produce some rotation that eventually could lead to a brief spin-up tornado. We've been talking as a team back here this morning. You've heard Scott mention it a few times as well. This environment, the setup, more than likely not going to lead to any long-track tornadoes. That's the hope, at least, right? More of what we're looking at is the chances of a brief spin-up tornado that could still cause some damage, right? But would it be on the ground for a long amount of time? It's hard to say with that setup. So right now that watch extended into Johnson, Logan, and Scott counties. You take it back here to radar, like we were talking about just a second ago. You actually see some of those tornado warnings just to the north of us. Our friends in Missouri dealing with that right now. The southern end of this line not producing that rotation as of right now. But it's a real mess. Unfortunately, it's not exactly in one straight line right now where we get those really strong straight line winds up to 70 miles per hour. It's still producing some strong winds right now, capable enough to produce those severe thunderstorm warnings. That barrier is 60 miles per hour. So as long as we see those wind gusts peaking up near there, that's where we could get some of those damage reports. I agree with Scott when he mentioned earlier is that more than likely, I think the setup today is going to be more wind damage. Those roofers going to be busy over the next couple of days, and more hail damage as well. Good news is I want to take a look, just make sure we haven't seen anything uptick. I know Joshua was mentioning that those cells moving into LaFleur and Scott County may have been showing some signs of uptick with the hail cores. So far, so good. Haven't seen a lot of those hail cores pop up, at least on our end. What you see there, let's take a look at the tracks. I think that's doing a better job. You've seen parts of eastern Oklahoma getting closer towards Sequoia and LaFleur County. Maybe there was some hail off towards the southwest, but that's really fallen apart. And then you take a look across northwest Arkansas. Sure, you see some of those gray returns. Maybe some penny-sized hailstones fell in parts of Benton County, parts of Washington County, but nowhere near the size that we need for that damaging hail report. If we do come back to this hail, more than likely we will at some point for today. A good thing to remember for at home, you're watching, you see that legend there on the top of your screen. You start to see some of those blue, dark blue returns. That's what we're going to be considering some damaging hailstones. We're nowhere near that mark right now. So far, we've only been dealing with the reason why they're prompting these severe thunderstorm warnings is because of the winds. And the good news is starting to see some signs of slowing down. We got a long day still left to go. These thunderstorms are definitely trying to organize, and they're moving into an environment that is suitable for that as well. Good news is that warning that I just scored there earlier, it was saying those thunderstorms were moving at about a clip about 65 miles per hour off towards the northeast. Those are some quick moving thunderstorms, giving us the feeling that maybe they're trying to pick up in intensity. We've moved from 65 down to 50, so there's still quick moving system, but it's starting to slow down just a little bit, about 15 miles per hour slower than what it was, say 15, 20 minutes ago. I take a closer look, though, and maybe you're in your northwest Arkansas where we expected those thunderstorms first, right? Unfortunately, that's almost like kind of like the first wave. Those thunderstorms out ahead of the main line has swept through portions of I-49, and you're driving on I-49 now, and hey, the rain has let up, right? It was a downpour just a few seconds ago. I want to point your attention just off towards the west. Still got more thunderstorms tracking out of eastern Oklahoma. Jay, Salem Springs eventually will see those thunderstorms first, crossing over the state line. Then across the river valley so far this morning has been very quiet outside of Scott. The very strong non-thunderstorm related winds that we've had so far. Feels like we've had a lot of those days where it's just been very windy outside, non-thunderstorm related winds. These isolated supercells, though, they can try to produce some of those strong winds as well. And when they're all by themselves out there, Joshua's keeping an eye on it right now. We just try to keep an eye to make sure nothing is rotating. You definitely have a concern when they're all by themselves. Just reading something from the National Weather Service. Wind shear remains very high, potential few wind gusts and the continued tornado potential. So, National Weather Service confirming, while we just have that severe thunderstorm warnings out right now, definitely some strong winds, they are not letting up on the chances of maybe seeing some areas of rotation for today leading to the potential of some tornadoes. We're keeping an eye on that as well. We just get that confirmation from the National Weather Service. Good to see that they're seeing the same thing that we're seeing as well. So far, it's just those warnings across northwest Arkansas, parts of Sequoia County, and parts of LaFleur County as well. Definitely not an organized line of those thunderstorms, but it's trying to come together further out towards the west. Again, the threat for today, you're watching at home saying, okay, we've already got a few thunderstorms. How much left left of this is to go. Definitely, we knew it was going to be a morning arrival, and unfortunately, during that morning commute as well. I think we got, Scott, at least till the early afternoon. That watch goes out till noon before we can start clearing some counties, at least temporarily. Because, Scott, like we've been talking about, we got more thunderstorms on the way.
You're exactly right. We got some more that's back building off towards the southwest here, and that's going to be tracking our direction. Given that orientation of the line northeast to the southwest, it's these cells that are going to be soon, we're really now moving into the river valley. Those are going to be delayed a little bit longer, and the reason why that new tornado watch is just in effect for Johnson, Logan, and Scott counties, well, and a good chunk of central Arkansas, that's because it's going to run until about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Those storms are going to take a little bit longer to get here, and the further east they go, and the later in the morning we get, there's going to be that potential for some additional severe storms to develop and potentially produce a tornado. I think the odds of a tornado today are somewhat low here locally. You get into central, eastern Arkansas, different story. Those odds are unfortunately quite high today. I hate to say it. Hate to say it, but there's a level 5 out of 5 severe weather risk across that part of the state. While we're waiting on our next cut in, I'll go ahead and show you that. You'll notice statewide, those storms track further east. They run into more favorable ingredients. We're talking better wind shear. That's going to spin the storm, more storm fuel. So that's going to develop the overall updraft. A lot of moisture. This you don't see too often. This purple here, that's a level 5 out of 5. You don't see too many of those issued, unfortunately. Once those storms move out of our area, it's going to cause a lot of problems over there. Let's hope we can avoid them here. I'm sure hopeful. Right now we're seeing severe thunderstorms. I don't love that necessarily, but unfortunately it could be worse, right? We'll take a look at that line. Getting ready for another one of those CBS cut-ins here coming up in about a minute or so. So things may get a little bit wonky again. The fact that these are remaining somewhat discreet now into parts of Sequoyah County, still severe, capable of producing 60-mile-an-hour straight line winds. Probably some hail mixing in here as well at times, especially in the middle of those heavy downpours. These are the ones that we're going to want to watch closely over the next few minutes. I'll tell you what's happening in northwest Arkansas, while still potentially severe, maybe not as organized. I'm not seeing organization here that gives me a lot of heartburn. Can't necessarily say the same about what's going to move into the river valley over the next few hours. And that's not necessarily surprising. When you looked at that storm prediction zone risk map today, you found the higher coverage. Those oranges were in this part of the area, right? So there's really no surprises with anything we're seeing out there right now. Let's do this cut in real quick.
Covering news where you live. This is 5 News This Morning.
Well, good morning to you at home. I'm 5 News Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert. The entire 5 News weather team working in the studio and in the field this morning, tracking these severe thunderstorms as they move through the area. Everything you see here in orange is a severe thunderstorm warning. That spans from Benton, Carroll, Madison, and Washington back towards Delaware, Adair, partially to Sequoyah and LaFleur County also included in that warning. Right now, the primary concern, 60-mile-per-hour straight line winds. There could be some hail embedded within some of these thunderstorms as well. That's the severe aspect. Now you've also got a lot of heavy rain, frequent lightning, frequent thunder. All of this is slowing down a little bit. Our timeline seemingly shifting an hour or so later in the morning as these storms and the cold front itself slows down. That's going to keep severe weather in the forecast for the next little bit. Before we take a closer look into some of these cells, I want to show you some brand new information. At this point, the entire 5 News viewing area is under a tornado watch for northwest Arkansas, for east Oklahoma, as well as for Crawford, Franklin, and Sebastian counties. That's going to run through noon. New for us is Johnson, Logan, and Scott County now under that watch. Polk County and Mena as well. That watch runs through 4 o'clock this afternoon. As we take a look at live radar, what we find are these individual, more discrete supercells. That's generally from Sequoyah County points off towards the south. None of them are rotating right now. I'm watching them really, really closely because these are the ones that if there were going to be some rotation in the short term, this is where they would start to appear. I've not seen it over the last, let's say, 30 to 40 minutes. I hope that continues. But we want to be here tracking it for you just to be on the safe side. Not only are we broadcasting live during the CBS mornings, we're also continuously covering these storms over on 5+. If you want nonstop full coverage, you can find us there. We do have a weather impact alert in effect for today. I don't want to use these lightly, but today's just one of those days you're really going to need to stay weather aware, at least through early to mid-afternoon for many of us. Hail and damaging winds, that's our main concern today. That's the most likely hazards we're going to see. That tornado threat is there, though. It's not zero, and it's there. And we've seen this materialize just off to our west. We did have a confirmed tornado in the Tulsa area with this same line of storms. So we're going to be on guard throughout the rest of the afternoon. This is just round one of several that's going to move throughout the course of the next several days. There will be some storm chances. Flooding is, of course, going to increase towards the end of the week. But this morning, we're squarely focused on this activity. 60-mile-per-hour winds, heavy rain, lightning, thunder, a little bit of hail moving through northwest Arkansas, especially in Carroll and Madison counties. That structure not as impressive as these isolated cells here back off towards the south. We'll be back with more information this morning, and we're live on 5+. All right, thanks for bearing with us through that. CBS Mornings cut in. We'll continue tracking these storms. Stephen and Joshua, feel free to jump in at any point. I'm less concerned with what I'm seeing in northwest Arkansas than I was a little bit ago. Not as much organization here. There's probably some winds, and there's definitely some heavy rain, but this is getting messy as it moves towards Eureka Springs there. We're just not seeing the structure of storms as we once were a little bit earlier.
Sure.
And to me, that's some good news with this cluster here. Let's watch these guys getting close to Siloam, Decatur, Gentry, and Bella Vista as well. This is where our cold front is. There's going to be a decent forcing mechanism, at least on those. But I'll tell you, the ones that are just persistently isolated and discrete, these are the ones that, I'll be honest, I think that just have that kind of that look to it. Here's just the north of Evening Shade. You might have to watch this. Not a true classic hook echo, but it's a semi-discrete supercell, meaning it's kind of out there on its own. And those are the ones that get hairy really quickly. The one moving near Brushy, not necessarily concerning with it either, but it is kind of out there by itself, and you don't like those. You don't like to see the ones out there by itself. Now, I've got storm winds on because I'm just kind of looking at rotation in any of these cells. Joshua Stevens behind the camera also looking at rotation with every scan just to make sure nothing's popping up. Not seeing any with that cell either. But as these continue to get a little bit closer to Sequoia and LaFleur County, that certainly could potentially be the case. So we want to be on top of it, want to be here for folks pretty much for the rest of the morning into the early part of this afternoon. If there's going to be a severe warning, we're going to be here live on 5+. That's still coming in south of McAllister, starting to show a lot of signs of strengthening right there. That would inevitably bring that one eventually into LaFleur, maybe even closer to the Fort Smith area on that current track. It's not severe. There's no warning on it, but gosh, it's pulsing up pretty quickly, isn't it? And that's looking from the Fort Smith radar, so we're kind of ways out. A lot of lightning and a lot of thunder with that specific cell. Joshua, if you could, take a look at that one south of McAllister. That may show up actually better in Gibson Ridge. It may look pretty stout there. Line itself getting closer to that Oklahoma-Arkansas state line. Let's take a closer look here into Fort Smith with that cell again coming out of Sequoia County. It's been pretty quiet in the River Valley this morning. This activity that's getting ready to move in is somewhat spotty in nature. Here's Spiro. You probably got a little bit of light rain going on in Spiro. Sallisaw, south side of town, south of I-40. If you live there, I know you got some rain, you got some wind, a little bit of lightning, not a whole lot, not as compared to other parts of the area. This storm tracking off towards the east, northeast, so it is going to come certainly through the Van Buren community, probably inevitably Alma and Mountainburg, may skirt parts of Fort Smith, especially the north side of the town. You get a little bit further towards the south, we may have to watch for some of this other clutter back near Stigler. That will inevitably move to the Fort Smith area right now, though. Things are pretty quiet in the River Valley. These storms are lagging a little bit further behind in the River Valley, so it's going to take a little bit longer to get those to move into the area. I'm curious, while we're here on Plus, I'd like to do this. I want to look at storm fuel. This is just one model. I'm going to back it up. So current time is about 9 o'clock. Most storm fuel is going to be south of Interstate 40. Not to say this moderate storm fuel north of I-40 isn't impressive. It's there, but you start to get these reds and these oranges. That tells us there's a bit more. You got something, Josh? No, okay. I was making sure you didn't have anything to pass along. And then notice what happens. That front gets a little bit closer. We're getting later into the morning, more storm fuel because we're warming things up. It's kind of muggy out there already. It's pretty mild for this time of the day. Storm fuel is going to get a little bit higher. You start to see some of these darker reds here. We're getting up there. and that's where we really start to focus for some of that development that could very well move into parts of the river valley late this morning into the early part of this afternoon. Once the front entirely clears us, you see that storm field just drop off completely. Most of the evening is actually going to be nice and quiet for a lot of us, for most of us. And we'll, of course, do it all over again tomorrow. There's going to be that severe weather potential there as well. Let's take a look at our hazard by hazard for today. We'll break this down, kind of what we're looking at. The tornado potential for today is in the elevated category. We have a sliver of Johnson, a sliver of eastern Logan, and a really tiny sliver of eastern Scott County, in which our tornado potential bumps up to that red, which is the enhanced. So we're, it's not necessarily zero, right? Hailstones, especially with all that storm fuel, that's going to be where we see that materialize. That same zone, right? We were looking south of Interstate 40. This corresponds to that pretty well. Sometimes people get kind of hung up on what do these black hash marks mean. They are confusing. I definitely grant you that. That's the Storm Prediction Center not necessarily saying the potential for hail is any higher or lower. They're just saying in this black hash marked area, should a thunderstorm try to produce some hail, it's likely to be big. We're talking 2 inches in diameter where you've got those black hash marks. So not to say everybody sees hail today. I know those words cause a lot of heartache for car dealerships. That's not to say it's necessarily going to be widespread hail. It just means that should a thunderstorm get going, it certainly could produce that. Step out of the way here. I know my computer's a little bit in the way, but the wind potential, it's not much different. I think we're truly going to be a hail risk followed by wind, and then followed by that potential for some strong to severe thunderstorms capable of producing some tornadoes. Let's put Futurecast to work for us. I'll tell you, we're going to take all of this with a grain of salt, right? Futurecast is just a tool, it is not the gospel. It's not perfect, it's not always accurate, it's not always close, but it can be a tool to give us an idea of timing and placement loosely. In fact, I'll just tell you, I ain't even going to look at that anymore. That's junk. Let's go back over to the HRRR. It might be doing a little bit better than that one was doing. We'll jump back to live radar here in just a few. Yeah, so this is kind of a little bit better semblance of what we're looking at. Here's 10:30 this morning. Things are scattered, but still potentially strong. And this is where there's a little bit more concern going into the lunch hour. If this were to materialize, these are some strong thunderstorms. You see those purples there? That's going to be those larger hail cores. That's going to be where that materializes. Futurecast is a tool, right? It's not always the gospel. And they've not really done a great job in the last 24 hours. Should something to that actually materialize, then maybe that we're going to have to see that potential continue. The tornado watch itself does continue for a lot of these counties through noon, but of course Johnson, Logan, and Scott through 4 o'clock this afternoon, and that kind of matches up with what we're seeing in that specific run of Futurecast, why we would continue with that watch. And then you notice those storms just really get cranked up once they move outside of our viewing area into the Little Rock area, where that level 4 and level 5 potential of severe storms is today. Let's see what's changed on on live Doppler radar. If you guys have anything to pass on, you just jump right in. It looks like we've got a special weather statement now in effect for Benton, Carroll, Madison, and Washington counties. And what a special weather statement is, it's a step below a severe thunderstorm warning. It's information purposes, and that's pretty much about it. What they're saying is, yeah, winds are still breezy, but we're no longer really meeting that severe weather threshold. What we'll likely see is that warning's probably going to end up falling off the map at the point of which it's going to expire. It's 9:15, so they'll probably let this warning across a broad majority of Northwest Arkansas expire here in the next 9 minutes or so. These, though, probably continue at least across parts of southeast Oklahoma into Sequoia and LaFleur counties. Stephen, I'm going to let you maybe give us an update on some traffic if you want to get that ready.
Yeah, been keeping an eye on it. Just one accident out there right now. It's actually been cleared already. We take a look. There's a camera nearby. You may still see the cars off to the side of the road, but outside of that, that's the Bella Vista interchange. And I got to pull up a camera here. Let's see here. Right there. So this is Bella Vista Interchange, you know the area. Yeah, we got that one accident out there right now. It's already being cleared up. Police still on the scene. Looks like they're taking that car away right now. Outside of that, we've had a few other accidents this morning that haven't caused any huge traffic delays. And so far, so good. Really, that all those traffic delays that we had earlier, unfortunately, those accidents probably related to that first group of cells that we had across northwest Arkansas that brought some really heavy rainfall, some strong thunderstorms as well, severe thunderstorms prompted those warnings as well. Right now, though, that's the one accident we have there at the Bella Vista Interchange. You take a look at radar right now, and we're in between across northwest Arkansas, these two very unorganized storm systems. The first one ahead of it more than likely is not going to be extended into that warning category. The winds just aren't great enough. The hail's not large enough either. You could find some small hailstones here and there. Right now, your Bentonville, Rogers, down to Spring-Nell, maybe a few scattered showers right now. Fayetteville, a few scattered showers as well. Really, the main concern is the line of thunderstorms that's still just crossing over just now into parts of northwest Benton County. That's where that cold front is going to be initiating those storms. You take a look off towards Adair County. Those thunderstorms near Tahlequah, Stillwell, Westville, producing lots of lightning in that area as well. That'll eventually cross over into the state line. We continue to track off towards the south, and what you see is those supercells that we've been talking about, and we are keeping a very close eye on those. Not necessarily supercells, but rather just they're out there all by themselves. If they can strengthen, start to rotate, that's where the concern starts to grow. Anytime those cells are all out there by them lonesome, they can spin a little bit easier. You keep working south parts of Leflore County. Very quiet out there right now. Maybe you've seen a few thunderstorms here and there. You are included portions of it in that warning polygon, but those storms haven't just quite reached just yet. So we're still kind of in the developmental stage. This is going to be a long day for Arkansas as a whole. We're just now getting these thunderstorms firing up. Good news is for us, when you look at the whole state in itself, and I'll pull that map up here once again, we were showing it this morning. We are definitely on the lower end of the risk. It's far from zero. We have that level 2 slight risk in northwest Arkansas. You have that level 3 enhanced risk across the river valley. But you look towards central and eastern parts of the state, and we were talking earlier just as a team, it's a very concerning outlook they have from the Storm Prediction Center for Little Rock Metro, and then especially further east you work into the Jonesboro, Memphis area, West Memphis, all that shaded in pink there is the highest level you can go from the Storm Prediction Center. So unfortunately, as that cold front continues to track off towards the east, moves into an environment that's more unstable, that's going to help produce those stronger storms, more the potential of severe weather, more of the potential of those tornadoes as well. Back here at home, though, we're still just kind of in that developmental stage so far. We're waiting to see what fires up, what doesn't. Another one of those special weather statements just came through as well. We talked about that a little bit earlier, what that means. It doesn't mean that those storms aren't strong, that they won't cause maybe some minor damage here and there, but it's just not it's just not capable enough of producing those severe thunderstorm warnings. The threshold you have to reach for that is around 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So as long as we continue to see more and more of those special weather statements, maybe starting to see some signs of weakening on that southern end of that line of thunderstorms. But overall, they haven't even moved into parts of the river valley just yet. So once they move into that environment, they could start to produce some severe weather. But you just saw that update right there. We're getting closer towards 9/10. Was that when it was set to expire? That's a weird time, more than likely. I think they canceled it a little bit earlier. So we're dropping well below the severe limits there, just enough that they're saying, we're not even going to let this go to how long the warning was supposed to go out into. So they're canceling that warning. It's so unorganized. You can barely see the line of thunderstorms that it's trying to develop along that cold front. It's there. It's just so discrete and so isolated supercells right now that are trying, maybe every once in a while will pulse up and down, but it's not enough to cross over the severe limits. That's why they've replaced that with that special weather statement. And I imagine, unless let's see here, severe weather statement or severe thunderstorm warning canceled early. So I imagine unless the thunderstorms that are moving into northwest Arkansas right now, if those don't uphold its strength, and that was one of those special weather statements, we could see that one canceled early, or they just expire here in just a little bit. So definitely in the developmental stage right now. When we looked at HRRR, one of those models that shows us what may happen in the future, definitely some signs of later on this late morning hours into the early afternoon, you could see some development where those thunderstorms really start to line up. That's where you would get those straight line winds. That's where you would get some hail. That's where we would have to watch out for some rotation. Maybe once the environment's a little bit better to support those storms. There's still a lot of lightning in eastern Oklahoma, especially you get to Adair and into Delaware County as well. Eventually, those storms would move into parts of Washington and Benton County, and that's what I'm going to just close in a little bit on right now. If there's any part of this line of thunderstorms that I want to keep an eye on, it's probably this cell that's in between Tahlequah and pushing into Washington. It doesn't give me the idea that it's shaped like anything. It's just kind of ugly looking in eastern Oklahoma, but there's a lot of lightning in that area. And so maybe one cell that starts to pulse back up could produce some of those strong winds, maybe drop a few hailstones. On the topic, let's take a look at that. Prepare yourself. I imagine we're not going to see much of anything, and that still is holding true. Little to no hail so far out of these cells, which is good news for us. The main threat that we've had so far is just those winds. So still waiting to see. This warning goes out until, let's see here. That goes out until 9:15. 2 more minutes here. If we haven't heard anything from the National Weather Service, Scott, I imagine we may be warning free here in just a little bit.
I sure hope so. It certainly seems like we're on a little bit of a downward trend with some of these cells. Even the concerning ones in the river valley are seemingly hitting a wall. They've still got some organization to them, but they've fallen below severe limits. Still gusty winds, probably some heavy rain, decent amount of lightning and thunder. I don't necessarily think that means our severe weather threat is going to be over for the day. I think that perhaps we will see some additional development later in the afternoon, especially as that front approaches the state line and we get into parts of the river valley, really Johnson, Logan, and Scott counties, even parts of Sebastian, I would say Franklin. We'll need to be very, very mindful over the next several hours. Really, that watch runs until about 4 o'clock this afternoon for that part of the area. So while I do feel a bit of sense of relief right now, perhaps we have more to track later this afternoon. I know folks in the River Valley haven't gotten a lot at all, and you're kind of thinking, what in the world's going on? It's slowly but surely just off to your west, trying to get a little bit closer out there, but it's taken its sweet time. It's a bit more scattered, broken in nature, and that's going to be a concern for us over the next few minutes. And it just magically popped up on your screen, right? Let's work through radar here. There is one strong cell moving through parts of getting ready to move into Adair County. A lot of lightning and a lot of thunder with that guy. It does have some organization to it. We'll watch this cell getting ready to move into Crawford County and may skirt parts of Fort Smith. You've got some additional thunderstorms that are developing off towards the southwest, especially south of McAllister. That's all the activity that's going to be tracking our direction. So a bit of a break. We'll watch to see what happens going into this afternoon. We do have a watch in effect for a reason, right? This is going to be that watch right here. It's including all of the 5 News viewing area. If you're watching us here in yellow, you're under that tornado watch. There are 2 technical watches in effect. One's for Northwest Arkansas, all of East Oklahoma, as well as Crawford, Sebastian, Franklin. That runs till noon. And then for our friends here in Johnson, Logan, and Scott counties, you're under your tornado watch until 4 o'clock this afternoon. That's going to be the window we really want to watch. Overall, our severe weather risk is going to be higher to our east. That's not changed at all. What has changed is the fact that the severe weather potential has increased across parts of central and eastern Arkansas. It's not our viewing area, but I just got to show you this in case you know somebody out there. This is a rare level 5 out of 5. It doesn't get higher, right? And it's almost entirely driven by tornado probabilities in that part of the state. In fact, I think I may have a graphic I can show you regarding tornado probabilities. Day 1, Arkansas. And it's kind of a bit of a messy graphic here. There's a lot going on to it, but this is the overall tornado risk for all of Oklahoma, all of Arkansas. And you can see the further east we get, that threat does increase, and that does include parts of our area. There's no question about that. That's why we got the full team here tracking this thing. But I really think it's going to be wind and hail more than likely for us. But we got to be on guard just to be on the safe side. You find that tornado risk here, it just doesn't get much higher than that. It's a pretty rare level 5 out of 5 risk. The tornado watch that will inevitably issued for that part of the state is probably going to be one of those PDS watches, particularly dangerous situations. I don't know that for sure. I just highly suspect, given the parameters that are in place, that that's what we're going to be looking at. I will show you this too. This is one model that kind of highlights our tornado potential. And you can see, we're looking at that exists right now as we speak. It's there, but look what happens once we go further into time. In fact, we get to 11 o'clock, and the timing of this is probably going to be a little wonky, not necessarily the best. Actually, that just shows it totally fizzling out. I don't know if I believe that at all. I don't think I believe that at all. I'm going to just take that off the screen. That's crap. Bad data. These models have struggled with this setup pretty much for the last 24 hours or so. It just is what it is. Computers aren't perfect yet. Maybe one day they will be, but they aren't yet. More thunderstorms getting ready to move into the area. Current time is 9:17. The lack of any severe weather warning is good news for us right now. So as we begin to wrap this up, this specific stream, I'll tell you, I suspect we're going to have to be back, okay? Just because we're about to end the stream doesn't mean that the threat's over. It's going to continue. At least as of right now, we're in a bit of a lull in the activity. Things are somewhat quiet for us at the moment in terms of severe weather. Enough parameters are in place, enough ingredients are in place that we've still got to be weather aware. Should a warning be issued of any kind, we're back. We'll send a push alert to your mobile phone. That's that little pop-up notification if you have our app downloaded. And of course, we're going to be right back here on 5 Plus as well. If a tornado warning is issued, I'll cut into programming. That's kind of our plan for the next several hours. We're not going to go anywhere. We're going to continue tracking these storms. Current time here, 9:18 for the team here, all at Channel 5, and all of the directors and producers that I gave a workout to this morning. Thank you so much for tuning in, trusting us with your weather information. We know there's a lot of sources out there, and we're happy to be among those.